Started off as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and now...
That's right. We are live.
The ghost faced himself, Brandon Tanev.
This isn't like the start of last season when it was just, it looked like the Canucks were just a beer league team not playing defense at all. And just before Chris goes, no, I'm kidding, Chris, you can actually go now.
no, hold on.
We had to give more time for coming on late. So.
I still had, hold on. All right. Chris, go, and then I got something else to say at the end.
So, an elf and a midget in 2 back-to-back games. He's definitely on a friendship tour for sure.
Oh, yeah, I'm okay with him being, the 6'7" defenseman. No! He is a AHL defenseman right now.
Look, Shonky, don't mind Devin, okay? We all struggle with Devin, so you know.
We really don't, but it's just such great line. But hello, welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks, Twitch.com Shifts and Pucks. Subscribe wherever you get your audio, as well as on the Area 51 Sports Network, as I make sure my headset looks like it's on my head for those that are watching live or on any video device. And yes, we are here. The Calgary Flames are 1 point away from clinching first place, the Pacific Division. We're here to chat Flames. Hello, Devin.
Hey, Kev. How's it going, man?
I am okay. Once I finished our podcast last week, I came down with a pretty severe cold, and I have been fighting it ever since. So that I'm not at a full 100%, but I'm playing a little bit hurt, but I'm not playoff hurt, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. Yes, you're not Drew Doughty-esque right now on the IR, who's gone through surgery. Yes,
right. Yes, yeah. I'm battling through it. We're gonna get through this today, and
nice.
We'll get to
Well, I'm happy to hear you're on the mend. That's good. I'm still struggling through my sickness, whatever the fuck it was. So I feel you, man. It's weird. It seems like a lot of people are going down with non-COVID sickness, and it's a shitty feeling. But hey, we will get through it. And before we start, though, I just want to shout out to the guy, my brother-in-law, Sean, and my brother-in-law, who did the music for our intro. I'm wearing his hat right now. Lodge Pull Kind. Go check him out on Instagram, Spotify, anything like that, and support some good local DJ here in Calgary.
There we go. Yes, good shout out there as well. Lodge Pull Kind. We never give him credit. I'm sorry. I should do that. We should do that a little bit more. My apologies.
Yeah, well, I mean, he does have a great name. Kevin is his name.
Well, there. Okay. Well, that should fix everything there. Today, we have given a lot of love to Johnny Gaudreau over the season. Excuse me, with great reason. And he hit 600 points on this road trip. He's got over 100 points. He's pissed off Jim Matheson. He's plus 60. All of that sort of stuff. Who we've not given a lot of love of, and probably one of the quietest 100-point seasons, that is Matthew Tkachuk. And I thought today we should start by giving some love to Matthew Tkachuk. Well, next week I'm going to present my awards, and you'll probably hear Johnny in that, but we won't hear Matthew in awards. Matthew is not going to be nominated for any awards. Matthew is, the Flames fans enjoy him. He's detested by the rest of the league fan base. Of course, especially Canuck fans are angered always about the Yo Levy pick there as well. But, Matthew has this reputation of being Matthew Tkachuk, and there's so many questions about his future with the Flames, but a quiet 99. He's about to get 100 points. He just needs 1 point for that within the next 5 games. He should get that. I just think that this guy has been a really solid teammate this year. Like, yes, he's mostly he worked with Lindholm and Goodrow, played a little bit with Backlund. After all of the nonsense that happened last year with the puck flip and with Jake Muzzin during the bubble, he's become a professional hockey player, like a true professional. We can count on Matthew Tkachuk to get things done. And I don't think that I don't even think the Flames market is giving Matthew the credit that he deserves.
He definitely does deserve a lot of credit this year, especially having a bounce back year from last year. As you mentioned, and we've mentioned multiple times on this podcast, the puck flip incident with Jake Muzzin. It's amazing that he is 9th in assists, 9th in goals, and 6th in overall scoring in the NHL this year. And it is pretty quiet considering the company that he has within points. Obviously, you have number 1, Huberdeau, McDavid, Gaudreau, Draisaitl, Austin Matthews. Then it goes Matthew Tkachuk, and Mitch Marner and Kirill Kaprizov are just below him in points. That's it. Some might say that, it's a contract year, and that he really the good majority of the time, if you're a high-end skill player who is in a contract year, you play a little bit harder. There's a little bit more on the line for you to make sure you get a contract that is worthy of your status. And as of right now, Matthew Tkachuk, I think he's kind of coming back. As far as I'm concerned, he's come back into the conversation as potentially being a potential captain moving forward. I think you still need to see maybe one more year of maturity. Obviously, he's not going to be getting any Lady Bing awards ever, but you got to think that he's solidified himself within that locker room and really become a massive focal point. Not saying he wasn't before, but within this year, he really has solidified himself. Now, not to bring it down just a bit, but he's going to have to show it in the playoffs as well. Yep. He's been very quiet. He's only been there once, I believe, right?
Well, yes, he was there once. He was there for Anaheim, and then he had the concussion during the bubble year.
Right. So he's been pretty quiet through both of those, and Johnny Gaudreau is the same way. Both of them need to be at their A game and not fading away into the night like they have been in former playoffs. But hey, no. But the regular season, hats off to Gaudreau and Tkachuk, and it's kind of weird how quiet Tkachuk has done this.
Yeah, I like, it's not because I don't think like you look at Johnny Gaudreau when he scores or it's an assist, it's highlight reel, right? Like it's the example, the goal Johnny scored in Chicago, where he went to grab a hot dog downtown, catch the baseball game at Wrigley Field, and then come back to the United Center and then shoot the puck and score. Right. So Johnny does these highlight moves. Matthew just puts the puck in the net. And then the only time that you really see a highlight with Matthew Tkachuk is if he's pushing and shoving or anything like that. But he's like in any sort of beautiful goal. Matthews doesn't score beautiful goals. Like that's not like, I mean, unless it's a puck, it's between the legs. I mean, he does have the skills, but it's not, I don't know. It's not as sexy / spectacular as what Johnny Gaudreau does. So we don't see the highlights from Matthew Tkachuk.
It's more so meat and potatoes hockey.
Yeah.
Right. It's hardworking goals that, aren't really skillful, like you said, but he does have that skill set, but I think he chooses it wisely when he does use it, because it does catch people off guard a little bit. And I think there's a nice little mix of meat and potatoes hockey along with having the hockey sense. I talked about this on our last podcast. Hockey sense, I think, is one of the most underrated attributes that a player could have. You can have you could have massive, a great shot. You could have a hard shot. You could have like decent passing. But hockey sense, that's something you can't really learn. You can't really learn. You're kind of born with it, essentially. And Matthew Tkachuk, obviously, with his bloodlines, him and his brother, and obviously Keith Tkachuk, his dad, are, born and bred to play hockey.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they love the game. They love to be in the fabric of the game, and he's also 50. This may surprise you. Here's a couple. 50% in the face-off circle. For a winger, not bad, right? Like,
how many face-offs does he have? I'm kind of curious. Does it say?
Let me pull us up here as we do fantastic podcasting again here.
I always ask the questions that we don't have anything really lined up for, so my apologies.
No, that's good. I pulled this up as we were going here. Let me go here. But he's got a plus 52 here. Like, so, despite what something about plus minus, to be in the plus 50s, Johnny Gaudreau is a plus 60, plus 50. That's damn, like, no matter what analytics that you look at, that is, or how you look at that stat, the plus minus that's a damn pretty impressive stat.
I think the ones that plus minus for the middle third of the NHL, it doesn't really make too much sense. But the outliers of the low negatives and the very high positives, I think those are things that people do need to take into account when they look at plus minus.
Yeah, especially when it's something like that significant, right? And and it is. I'm not seeing his face-off stats here.
Yeah, that's okay. That's fine. Not a big deal. And he has another thing. I think that is not really. It's hard to get tangible evidence on why some players have a higher game-winning goals than others, but he has 6 game-winning goals. So and the most in the NHL is 11 with Leon Draisaitl, and then you have Jason Robertson and Chris Kreider tied for second with 10. I think that is an underrated stat. I know once again, I know it's the analytical people probably have their reasoning and use that to a certain extent on why the numbers are the way that they are. But I feel like that's an underrated one.
Yeah. He is a typical what you need for the playoff type of performer. He plays in all situations. He'll score a goal when you absolutely need it. And he'll come up with a play when you absolutely need it. Like, he's an X factor, and he's going to have to be that for the Flames to get on to the next round or the next step here in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And we saw this last night. I don't think that whoever the first round matchup is, I think that the 2018-2019 season taught us not to take anyone lightly. And I think if you watched Nashville last night, they are not going to go away very quickly. So you're going to need Matthew Tkachuk to be successful.
That top line really does. They need to make sure that they are playing at the level that they are right now. And that goes straight down the lineup too, though, that you have to make sure that everybody has a role and knows what their role is, and that they're executing it properly to be successful within the playoffs. And the lineup that I've actually been pretty happy to see a bit more of a stability within the lineup that Daryl Sutter has put out there. With obviously you have your top line, Johnny, Lindholm, and Tkachuk. Then you have the Backlund, Mangiapane, Toffoli line, and I think the one that is going to be very underrated and something that all of us need to be watching more is the Dubé, Yarncroke, Coleman line. I think that is the lineup that we will see on the first game in the playoffs, whoever we're playing against. Solidifying that top 9 is huge, and finally figuring out, okay, maybe they'll take Tkachuk off that top line, put him down with Backlund and Mangiapane because they do have chemistry. They have worked together before, and putting Toffoli with more of a playmaking center. Not saying Backlund isn't a playmaking center, but I think Lindholm is just a half a step, if not a full step above of where Backlund can be. And I'd say a full step above, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But I just want to make sure that Toffoli will be able to produce on a level that will help the Flames, because yes, he has his defensive side of the game, and anytime that Backlund, whoever the flanks are on Backlund's line, they need to make sure that they do have some defensive minded ability and are able to do a shutdown role. But I want to see Toffoli more in the mix of on the offense, and I could definitely see them switching up Tkachuk and Toffoli if need be.
Yeah, with Yarncrow, I think he's finally showing that he's comfortable being a Flame centerman. I think that's a good thing. And I think that line is getting some rhythm. I think now both Coleman and Dubé, who couldn't buy a goal at stretches during this year, especially Coleman, is finally he's scoring, and that's a good sign. And I think Dylan Dubé, I wonder if we start seeing Dylan Dubé as more of a playoff performer than a regular season performer. I wonder if that's in his DNA.
I could see it.
And then Mangiapane, I think Daryl Sutter wants more consistency from Mangiapane. I think that's what he said yesterday. He said, you got to score the goals he scored yesterday. That's the type of those are playoff goals. So certainly could feel that a little bit from Mangiapane. I think Toffoli's been fine. I still think there needs to be more from Backlund, and that fourth line is just going to be that fourth line. And I know. Okay, so here's the thing: Milan Lucic hasn't scored in 41 games, or has one goal in 41 games, or something like that. They're not going to need a lot of offense, but it would be nice if they chip in with a goal or two there. But I think the idea is put the next line in a better position. That's the role of Ruzicka, Lewis, Lucic, Carpenter, Ritchie. That's the 5. That's the job that they're going to have to do. Where I'm concerned where the offense is coming from is from the defense. I think there are 4 power play goals from defensemen on this team all year. And I'm not saying that we have we have a dynamic offensive defenseman a la Cale Makar, a la Roman Josi, a la name some other ones. I think Rasmus Andersson has taken a step up. I think we all agree that Noah Hannafin has taken a step up. But with facing a Dallas, facing a Nashville, which I would assume I've got them at 33% and 33% of it's a 66% possibility, fair to say, that it's going to be one of those two teams. Maybe the Golden Knights, but I think if the Golden Knights get in, they get in third. If the Canucks get in, I think they get in through the back door of third. Are you seeing it the same way, or are you putting the Golden Knights or the Canucks as a possibility of a matchup?
I'm along the same lines as you. If anything, they're going to bump out Los Angeles from that third spot in the Pacific wild card. I just don't see Dallas or Nashville kind of faltering like LA has been. It doesn't mean that they can and they will. I think Dallas probably has more of a chance to fall out than Nashville does, just from the consistency side of things. I think Nashville brings a consistent effort every single night, and then it's kind of a mismatch of, okay, what type of Dallas Stars team are we going to get tonight, depending on whatever the case may be. But yeah, it's really interesting to see Vancouver still hanging on.
Yeah, they probably needed 2 points last night. They got the one. They're hanging. I don't think that they can lose anymore though. Like I just don't see, like, even a loss to Minnesota, I think, is a bit of a nail in a coffin right now. Like the Kings are in a situation they're not playing they're not playing a team in the playoffs for the rest of the regular season. And they have 4 games left. Vegas, we'll get to them a little bit later, but Dallas and Nashville, Dallas is inconsistent. We'll see tonight. If they win tonight, the Flames clinch first. If the Oilers win tonight, that Dallas is leaving a door open for both Vancouver and Vegas, maybe. I feel like Nashville is a bit above, though. I feel like Nashville is kind of securing that second wild card spot the more I think about it. But it's for Vancouver. I think there's, for us, I wonder, like, for us, is this recency bias? We're having a belief that Vancouver could get in, but I wonder around the league if people are outside the Canuck purview mirror, like, I don't know. I just don't see them. Like, yeah, they won 6 in a row. You kind of have to run the table to hope to get your shot in. I don't. That's the interesting question to me, where you're at with the Canucks being a true contender.
Well, they have 5 games left, and 4 of those are against playoff teams as of right now.
Yeah.
Minnesota, Calgary, LA, and Edmonton. And then they have Seattle mixed in there as well. I think you're right. I think they will have to run the table. I was just thinking to myself, well, maybe they could get 4 out of the 5 wins, but I'd say if you lose against Minnesota, Calgary, LA, or Edmonton, your shot is pretty much done. So you might have to run the table. And that's a tough ask, especially against Minnesota and Calgary, and the way that Edmonton is playing right now. So 3 of those are going to be very interesting to see exactly how things end up. And Edmonton is that last game of the year, so it could hinge on that last game.
Well, the Minnesota game, to me, if you're Minnesota, I think you absolutely need to get. To me, in that playoff series, if you're playing St. Louis, you want to have home ice advantage. So you're playing for second place there. Calgary, I think that Calgary will probably want to knock them off, and I think that's the last home game, regular season home game. So I do think they're playing the regulars for that one. We'll touch on who they play, but I definitely think regulars are playing for that one.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're cut out. I think the work is cut out for them. I'm not saying the Canucks can't win those games, but I just think that, it's not an easy trip for them.
No, it isn't. Even just looking at, so for instance, if LA decides to shit the bed, then you have Dallas, Nashville in the 1-2 wild card, but then you have Vegas, and Vegas doesn't have an easy schedule either. They got Washington tonight. Yep.
Do you have their schedule up?
Yes, they have San Jose after that. Then, they have Capitals tonight. Then they have a 3-day break. They play on Sunday against San Jose, Dallas, Chicago, back-to-back Tuesday, Wednesday, and then to end it off with St. Louis. They really needed that win against New Jersey. That was a massive loss.
That was huge. I totally agree. So, I mean, the big game that is that Tuesday, April 26th game against Dallas, that's pretty much going to decide that last wild card spot. So, and then you have St. Louis at the end of the year. Yeah. For Vancouver, I don't know. Keep the hope. Enjoy the run, but if they don't get in, they don't get in. I think it's easier to be in a playoff position in this point, as opposed to fighting for that last playoff spot and in must-win territory. That's Absolutely. I think that's the one thing I think that you come away with here.
Yeah, and did you go down Dallas's schedule?
Not yet. Let me do that here.
I got it up. Okay. So they have a game in hand of everybody else. They play back-to-back in Alberta. Tonight they have, like you said, Edmonton. They come to Calgary tomorrow. Then they have Seattle on the weekend. Then have another back-to-back Vegas, Arizona next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then they ended in Anaheim. So out of those ones, massive for Edmonton, Calgary game, and the Vegas Golden Knights game as well, as we just talked about before when we talked about Vegas's schedule. And Arizona, yeah, okay, that's maybe a free win on the bingo card. And then Anaheim, and I'd be very – I wouldn't take Anaheim lightly, especially with Ryan Getzlaf's last game as a Anaheim Duck.
Yes, that will be significant as well. But so yeah, okay. But the point being with where it's going before we went tangent upon tangent, which is cool, is both of those defense can score, and with the Flames, I think they are going to have to find a way to find some way of getting offense from a defenseman. And I mean, Rasmus Andersson has shown flashes of it. Noah Hannafin both of them have taken a step. Chris Tanev is Chris Tanev. Nikita Zadorov can do things when Nikita Zadorov wants to. Gabranson will be Gabranson. To me, the big question, and I will get myself in a little bit of trouble here from some people, is I do think they need more from Oliver Kylington. I'm not saying he needs to be benched. That's not what I'm saying. But I don't feel that he has been, and Daryl Sutter has said that there's been some defensemen that have struggled since the All-Star break. And to me, the guy that's striking, he didn't say a name, but the guy that's I feel is the suspect is Oliver Kylington.
It doesn't surprise me. He's a guy who has not played before this year in over 2 years, pretty much. And the way the schedule has been, I just think that he's run down. He hasn't had enough resiliency to or energy to push back. And that I think if you're going to take a rest, or if one player is going to take a rest, it should be Oliver Kylington to reassess. Okay, and it's not about maybe a bit of a look in the mirror, trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to do to make myself successful, especially in the playoffs. This will be his first playoff, as far as I know, his first playoff game. And he really needs to come out and play. The only other thing within that, though, Kev, is who else are you going to put in? Right? You're going to put in a Michael Stone. I love Michael Stone for what he is and how much money he makes as far as the cap goes, but I know he had a decent run when he was in last. I don't see. I'd be worried about the foot speed of that back end, because you already have Gabranson, the Zadorov, Chris Tanev. He's not slow, but he's not fast. And then outside of that, Rasmus Andersson is probably along the same, maybe a half a step above Chris Tanev, and then obviously Noah Hannafin being the gazelle that he can be if he wants to. I don't know if I would want to see that.
Well, is there an opportunity to take a look at Connor Mackey and see where he is? He had one good game. He had one struggle. I mean, to me, yes, Kylington is ahead of Stone and Mackey. But if you're like, it doesn't hurt these final 5 games to at least have a look.
Totally. And maybe it's at this time of year when you already have a playoff spot solidified, and tonight you could have the Pacific division locked up at number 1. You want to make sure that your players are still in a rhythm and are not, if they are going to be sitting, it's not for too long, because either way, whoever is sitting, they have to pay. In my mind, they have to play at least the second last or the last game of the regular season, just to make sure that they are ready to go for either Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday next week.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or a week and a half from now.
Now, the good thing with Michael Stone is, yes, foot speed at all, but he does have a shot blast from the point that he can score points, so that you have that as a possibility. but still, I would still go with Oliver Shillington. Please don't get me wrong, but I think they need more from Oliver Shillington going forward.
And I would aid on the side of caution of, Michael Stone has a massive shot as far as how hard it is, but it doesn't matter how hard your shot is. It's whether or not it gets to the net. And having those seeing eye shots is huge. So and obviously, like, Shillington doesn't have a great shot, but I think he's able to. Yeah, I think he's able to wheel himself out of kind of more difficult situations than a Stone would be able to. But you are right, Kev. The Rasmus Anderson, I think, is the one of the highest points of, or he is the best hope for any sort of defenseman to get points. And Hannafin's done pretty well lately as well, as far as getting on the score sheet. But the majority of those have been secondary assists.
Yeah. And yes, Dylan, we were drooling over Shillington over a few months ago, and he had a great start of the season. There's no question about it. But it's not there right now, and that to me is a bit of a concern for me going forward. But because you're going to need goals from everywhere. Nashville's going to get goals from everywhere. Dallas is going to get goals from everywhere.
Yep.
Calgary's going to need to get goals from everywhere. So that's the problem or the issue that I see at this point.
For sure. And the fact that Lucic hasn't scored in, you said 41 games, that doesn't concern me. Once the playoffs start, he will be a massive impact on that forecheck, getting pucks in and just punishing that defense, making sure that defense are going to be looking behind their shoulder every time that the puck is dumped into their zone. And to me, that's almost as good as a goal, because you're getting that defensive line off their game. So I think if I would more so look down the depth chart of the forward group and expect more from that forward group than on the defense. We know what this defense is. They've been pretty decent. They're not amazing, but they're good enough right now. And to Dylan's comment, remember drooling over Shillington a few months ago? Yeah, he's a rookie. I don't like if he has been around.
In essence, he is.
Yes, he doesn't have the experience, is my point. So if you're going to be thinking that Shillington is a lost cause because he hasn't produced, that he's not a lost cause, but he definitely needs to find his game again, find what made him successful, and if he is injured, he needs to sit.
Yep. Which now leads us to guess what we're about to have to do here. We do it every week. How much do you play Markstrom and how much do you play Vladar? I think you give Vladar. This is the one thing I will say though, is I would give Vladar the Vancouver game. I think I don't think he's played a game at home yet, and I think at least one. Split that and maybe give Markstrom Nashville and then Vladar for the rest, Minnesota, Winnipeg, and you're done.
Oh, yeah. It was kind of a sleepy first 20 last night. He really didn't get too much of a workload, and then it kind of amped up a bit from there. I think that you need to make sure that Vladar does get in to at least one more game. I'm hoping to. I'd probably put him in against Dallas.
And then give Markstrom Vancouver.
Give Markstrom Vancouver and kind of, say a little bit of a fuck you to Vancouver since they're in your Pacific Conference, and try and shut down their chances of getting into the playoffs, unless you want them. Unless Calgary thinks that Vancouver could get into one of those wild card, but I think you're more focused on what you're doing than what any other team is doing. And do Dallas for Vladar, then you do Vancouver with Markstrom. Vladar against Nashville and do Minnesota, Markstrom, and Vladar for the Winnipeg game. That's what I would do. I'd do 3 of the last 5 with Vladar.
Yeah, I think I would too. I just think we differ on how we would do it, and I don't disagree with you. I'm just looking here. Have the Flames played the Canucks since it was 7-1?
Since it was 7-1. Yes.
Okay.
They
So
played
Markstrom got that vindication game then.
Yes, yeah. The Calgary won 5-2.
No, wait, but it was Vladar that played that game. It wasn't Markstrom.
The one that got completely out of hand.
No, the other one in Vancouver that Calgary won going away 5-2. That was a Vladar game. That wasn't a Markstrom game.
I'm just bringing it up right now. Yes. Let's see here. Game stats all the way down. That was Markstrom that got
Was it Markstrom?
Well,
it was Vladar.
They split.
No, sorry. The one that they, not the 7-1 game, the one they played in Vancouver after. The one 5-2. They won 5-2. That was Dan Vladar. So Markstrom hasn't had that rebound game against Vancouver. I wonder if he wants it. So maybe for that you give him that. For that reason in and of itself alone.
Maybe. I think as of right now you really don't want to it's not so much a vindication or I didn't do well against them last time. It's more so, okay, what do you need to do to, and that might be the case to get him and his confidence back, is to let him choose on when he gets in and when he plays. And I think that's what's probably going to happen. But knowing the way that Sutter has done it so far as the goalies go, is that I wouldn't be surprised if you see Markstrom 4 out of the next 5.
Sean, at school, Vladar doesn't matter. It's about making sure Markstrom's ready for the playoffs. But that I think we're all saying the same thing.
They go hand in hand.
They go hand in hand, right? If Markstrom wants the game against Vancouver, give it to him. But you're probably playing Vladar 3 of the 5, no matter how that looks.
Hopefully, I think, because no matter what, you're worried about whether or not Markstrom is going to be okay in the long run, if there is a long run for the Flames.
And I know that we're overthinking this, and it's about getting Markstrom healthy for the playoffs. Sutter overplays his goaltenders. We all know that, but we'll have to see there as well. The chat's saying that I think Vladar plays the next 3 of the next 5. I'll make that prediction. I think all of you in the chat are wrong. Yeah.
I'm with Kev. I hope that that's the case, but we know what Sutter does. So who knows? It all depends on Markstrom's health. Realistically, if there's something nagging him, yes, he's been pushed through before. Yes, he's one to not take any sort of rest and just grin and bear it. But it's one of those things where if there is something going on, then he needs to make sure that he's the closest to 100% as possible.
Yep. So I guess now that we know the two, it's going to be the Stars or the Preds. We're 66%. We never really had the question. Who do you prefer to play? Who is
Dallas.
Yeah, I think that's
straight up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's kind of an easy one. It's Dallas's goaltending that's so inconsistent because you got Jake Ottinger, he's inconsistent. And then Scott Wedgwood. I wonder if I wouldn't be surprised if we see at least Wedgwood once or twice in the playoffs.
I wouldn't either.
But Nashville, I just think has the stronger team. They play a very Calgary style. I think Tanner Jeannot is going to bother a lot of Flames fans. I think there's going to be a lot of people bothered by that, and I think it's a good goaltending matchup, Markstrom versus Saros, both in the Vezina conversation. You have a quiet Matt Duchene that's got close to 40 goals. Philip Forsberg, nobody talks about him, but he still drives play. And then you got your 100, you got Roman Josi that Roman's around, but don't forget the other defensemen there as well. The Predators are, to me, a far tougher matchup than the Stars.
Yeah, it's also just the consistency, like you're talking about. I think more so you have even outside of their goaltending, because I think that Ottinger's been good enough, and if he does get hot, then watch out, because he can have that firepower within him to make those big game saves. But the biggest thing for me is just that back end of Nashville and the depth that they do have up front, and obviously Saros. So it scares me too much if I did have a choice, it'd definitely be Dallas, because outside of that top line of Hintz, Robertson, and who's that other guy?
Pavelski?
Is it Pavelski on the top line?
Yep.
Outside of them, Sagan has been, both Ben and Sagan have been absolutely terrible the past few years and very inconsistent. They're older. They're older. You have Glendening, Faksa, Radulov, Ben, Sagan, Michael Raffle, Ryan Suter. Those are older players within this league, and I feel like that with Calgary's speed within that top 9, that they'd be able to do some damage against Dallas.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. Yeah. Just Predators' depth scares me. Like they have playoff experience too. Colton Sissons has been there. Ryan Johansson's been there too. So yeah, there'll be a tougher matchup for sure. But maybe the depth. I mean, the question would be depth on defense, maybe for Nashville. I wonder where that edge would be. I think we're probably going to see the Flames and the Preds, but I would rather. I think the Stars would be the easier matchup, but
for sure. And then Flames could slay that dragon essentially from back in the bubble.
Yes, that's right. That's the Flames slay the dragon. One of the Flames slay the dragons, I guess. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Is there anything else with the Flames we need to chat about?
I don't think so. As of right now, we can do our playoff preview once the regular season is over, and we can really go down the list of things that we do want to talk about as far as playoffs go. So yeah, we're good.
Good. So we've got, of course, on Saturday, we'll do a quick. We've got that big game Saturday. We talked about that. Vancouver and Calgary, the final home game with the Pig and Duke. You and Sean are going. You're taking Dylan with you. Dylan's going to come. And I believe Matt is coming as well. I think there's one else. So are you excited about that? Or?
Of course. Oh, my God. I get to meet Dylan for the first time. And he can rib me all he wants about how I'm a Leafs and Flames fan. Yeah, it'll be a good time. Go see Steven at the Pig and Duke beforehand, and then go drink our faces off essentially here. And it's always a good time whenever you go watch a Pacific rivalry, especially Vancouver. And it'll be a good game. I think both teams have something to play for, more so Vancouver than Calgary. Calgary just needs to make sure that they're doing the right things consistently, getting ready for the playoffs. And obviously with Vancouver's push to try and either get a wild card, a third spot in the Pacific, I think it'll be a fiery one.
Yeah, I think it will be too, for sure. And even if it's out for Vancouver, I think both of those teams will want to make a statement for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be fun. We'll have to talk about that next Monday when we're all together again. But let's talk about your Leafs here for a little bit. It looks like the Flames, Boston or Tampa is going to be the matchup. Who should the Leafs want to face?
Oh God, I would say Boston. I would love for them to talk about slaying dragons, get that monkey off their back, and I think that if they do that, then even though they won't, they'll probably play Florida or Tampa in that next round. I'm not too bullish on Washington and their hopes for a second round berth into the playoffs. So it'd be one of the Florida teams, and man, I think that if Toronto is able to do that, it's a well-deserved playoff push. That I think that if even if they do go out in the second round, yes, it'll be a disappointment, obviously, but both those Florida teams, the Panthers and Tampa Bay Lightning, they both have pedigree to be scary, and we saw Florida last year do very, very well in consideration of even though they got bounced, and then Tampa is just Tampa. So overall, I think Boston would be their best matchup, even though the history has shown that it's not advantageous for Toronto. But I think like as of right now, this incarnation of Boston, I'm not as scared as I once was.
I have a hot take. Are you ready for it?
Oh, let's go, baby.
I don't think Tampa is as good as people are making them out to be.
Yeah.
They're off to slow starts. And I know that, once playoff starts that they can turn that switch, but don't recall from last year seeing the red flags from this regular season that I'm seeing now. Defensively, they seem to be allowing a lot of goals. They don't get off to good starts. They could be waiting for the playoffs, but just something isn't sitting right with me with Tampa right now. They just don't seem to be that. They don't seem to be where the two-time Stanley Cup champions were. I mean, I'm not saying that they can't turn it around. But I wouldn't be convinced that even if they get past Toronto, that they have a really good shot at Florida. They would end up playing. They would actually end up playing if things went the way they did now. Well, no, they're in third, so I wouldn't be convinced that they would give. If I was a betting person, might put more money on Florida than Tampa.
I would too. I'm 100% with you on that. They don't have that same swagger that they do. The only thing is, yes, they have that playoff pedigree, and they do have obviously they've won the Stanley Cup twice in a row. So they're definitely not ones you want to fuck with, and it would be a scary matchup to go in there. But no matter who you are, what team you are, just to be able to turn it on just like that, it's hard to do. So you really do have to. If I am Tampa, I would want to make sure that you're rolling going into the playoffs in these next 5 games that they have left in the regular season here. Really solidify themselves as a threat in the playoffs, not just because of their history, but because of right now. Because history doesn't mean anything if you're not ready to go in the playoffs. You're fucked. And I think the other thing is that obviously you had Kucherov come in last year, and I think he was a lot healthier, was healthy a lot, and that a lot of time before the playoffs actually started. So and obviously that power play can be very scary.
Yeah. And you still have the best goaltender in that conference, with all due respect to Igor Shesterkin and Andrei Vasilevsky. Like, he's done it. So I still would have to put him ahead of Shesterkin. That's the other thing. But yeah, I don't have the everything is going to be fine with Tampa feeling right now. I have the red flags with Tampa feeling, but you never know, right?
Yeah.
When you're the two-time Stanley Cup champions, you've done it before, you know how to do it. And
that's a good point about Vasilevsky, is that he is top 3, if not top 2 in the world, still in my mind, for the best goaltender. And if you run into a hot goalie, it doesn't matter how good you're playing. That's a scary proposition that you have there. If they aren't scoring, Tampa Bay isn't scoring, then they do have that amazing goaltender in Vasilevsky.
Yeah, for sure. We've touched on Vegas here, of course, of their playoff chances, and they had the big win against Calgary, then they lost to Edmonton, then they lost to New Jersey, and we're starting to see the stats comparing what Buffalo's record was since Jack Eichel's debut. And I'm kind of bothered by it because I feel like people are blaming Jack Eichel, and I don't think that this is his fault. First of all, I think that Jack Eichel has come in a situation. He got himself game ready as quickly as possible. He's not at full Jack Eichel. He's getting his game together. He's not the issue in Vegas at all. The issue here in Vegas has been about loyalty, has been about
culture.
The culture there is atrocious. I'm almost was half wondering today if I wonder if in a couple of years we hear Jack Eichel requests out of Vegas because of this. It's just like they have just used and abused their players to the point where it is like let's be frank, this has been a horribly run organization in a quest to get a Stanley Cup. And that's what they're playing for. These are players that they're not playing for the crest on the front of their jersey. They're not playing for them. They're just trying to survive, quite frankly. And, it's not the same team. It's really not.
No, definitely not the same team. The culture seems fragile. I can't imagine what those players are thinking within that locker room. It's too early to see. Okay, let's have everybody come back healthy after an off season, or and see exactly what team this is going into next year. I think it's too early to write them off just like that, because they still have a chance to get into these playoffs, and everybody's saying it. If they get in, that's the one team you don't want to play, because you don't know what you're going to get. When it's a double-edged sword.
Is it?
Well, I mean, you can't deny the fact that you have Jack Eichel, you have Max Pacioretty, who shoots at a shit ton. You have a massive, a great leader in Mark Stone, and if it really depends on if Lehner is able to come back and play at the level that he has been. That back end is scary as well. So I don't think it's one of those ones where you can just shrug off and say no, they're not going to do anything, and you're not scared. You're fucking scared. You still have Marchessault as well. Shea Theodore, he's been slowly transitioning on the upper trajectory because he did take a step back this year. Pietrangelo, he's won a cup. There's a lot of pedigree within that room that you do have to be worried about, Kevy. You can't say that you're not.
I think they've gotten old. I think they've gotten old and tired, and Edmonton was out skating them against Vegas. I don't think they're a fast team. I think that if you their turnovers. Who was the Warren Fogle breakaway on Saturday when I was watching that game? Braden McNabb tossed up a pizza to him. I think that they're old. I understand what people are saying. I just don't get that. They don't scare me as other teams do. If I was to say, if this was Nashville, Vegas, and I would rather face who I would rather face, honestly, I'd rather face Vegas over Nashville.
To me, that's a toss up. I don't know, because you have the consistency of Nashville, but Vegas, to me, they're still scary. And the one that Dylan brought up the name Dadonov. Dadonov, he's been on a tear since that whole debacle has happened. And granted, now he's been demoted onto the third line as of right now. And but like they still have a lot of firepower. They really do. If they can solidify their defensive structure more, then I feel like it's similar to what we see here in Calgary. Is that if the defense is there, the offense will come.
Yeah. An underrated. Nobody's talking about this loss. Everyone talked about the Fleury loss, and that was huge. The Reeves trade, I think, is the one that's killing Vegas too.
Yeah, they don't really have a deterrent anymore, and that's what Ryan Reeves brought, is that scare, the scariness. Yes, they have Keegan Kolzar, who is a decently good player for a fourth liner that they have right there. Outside of that, though, you really don't have a big deterrent. But that back end isn't small either. Zach Whitecloud, Braden McNabb are big boys. They can definitely throw their weight around, and if they need to, they'll drop the gloves.
Sure. Fair. And then finally, I put this poll out yesterday, and I heard this on a Denver podcast, a Colorado Avalanche podcast, because they were having this whole discussion about not who should win the Norris, who would be better. So I'm curious, Cale Makar or Roman Josi?
Oh, man. I would say I would rather have Roman Josi. And that might be the non-popular take because of how good Cale Makar has been since he came into this league. But I think he still has to learn. I'm not saying he's not a good leader, but Roman Josi is a world-class captain in this league, and like I said, the world. That's something that he brings. The leadership on and off the ice. He's able to he's able to play defense very, very well and still have the offensive skill. So in my mind, I think, you go with Roman Josi.
I go with Makar. Like, they're two great players. Please don't get me wrong, but like Cale Makar just does so much. Like, just for his youth, it's scary what Cale Makar is going to be. Mm-hmm. There was watching a little bit of that Colorado Carolina game. He went down the ice. He knocked someone into next week. Then came back into the play. I think knocked someone else into next week and took the puck away. Like that, he's just so unbelievable what Cale Makar does. It's crazy how good he is. But I do agree. I do see like Josi's so good in so many ways, and it's not just his offense, defense too. Although there's people that will argue that Ekholm gets the better matchups. Roman Josi, the fact that he creates offense, creates defense for Nashville, right? So,
yep. And you see him on the play-by-play guys say this all the time, that you see him on the 2-on-1 rush, and who's the first person back? It's Roman Josi.
Roman Josi, yeah. He's a great skater.
Oh, he's so smooth, smooth, and that within in of itself is another reason why I do not want to see the Predators in that first round against Calgary.
Yeah. Back to the Reeves part here. And I think Reeves was also a cliche, good locker room guy. Yeah, the loss of Reeves wasn't big itself, but compounded the culture issue that was mentioned earlier. Yeah, I think just combined just how they've just tossed players around. Like it's a card deck in Vegas. It's literally like they're dealing cards and poker chips.
Yeah, well, and I would not be surprised if McCrimmon is on the hot seat if they don't get in.
And DeBoer.
Well, I mean, once a new GM comes in, then the GM wants to get his own coach in. So yeah, they go hand in hand for sure.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna be at an hour, so
that's fucking crazy, man.
We ran through this. Yeah.
That's good. It's good though.
Hey, yeah, sometimes short is good. But how do we follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Gordhouse09.
Sean Beardy Canuck 03. He will be back on Monday. Tyler TNOBLE. He had a hell of a time at the game last night. Ottawa and Vancouver. That was a great atmosphere. Chris is driving around BC now. Schneids, SCHNEIDZ. I am KEVOLE. Shifts and Pucks on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, wherever you get your audio, as well as on the Area 51 Sports Network. We will be back, of course, for our full podcast Monday. And we'll have our pod clips and all of that to retweet. And we're going to have another contest here very, very soon. Maybe even a playoff pool. We are still kind of figuring things out for that. A couple of us are recovering from illness, so we're not all as sharp as we normally are, but we played through the injury, Devin.
Look at us go.
Look at us go. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.